One skill I wish I knew about when I was first learning piano is sight reading, but that's one of many things I wish I knew about when I first started learning. It's your piano teacher Tim here, and today I'm going to share with you the things I wish I knew when I first learned piano, and I'm willing to bet that you wish you knew these too. I sprinkled some bonus tips and goodies throughout the lesson, so make sure you pay close attention. On to number one. The first thing I really wish I knew about, other than sight reading, was that slow practice equals fast progress. Now you're like, what? You'd be surprised how often students will want to play a piece of music at full speed, particularly if it's a piece of music that they have heard before. Ooh, there we go. There's the volume. So if it's a piece of music that you already recognize, the tendency is to try to play it at full speed. But a lot of us can't manage to play it at that speed. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up trying to play it at that speed. You're just going to end up fumbling over it for a very long time. And you may think, oh, if I play it faster, I'll learn it faster. No, 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 no. You want to practice slow. Sometimes I like to do something called basically doubling all the note values. So quarter notes are now worth 2, half notes are now worth 4. So instead of eighth notes, like here on Für Elise, just play them as quarter notes, and that will slow everything way down. And that will help with accuracy in terms of getting the right notes. It will help in getting the correct articulations out there. So, you know, if the staccatos, legatos, all that thing, you're going to be able to play them a lot better if you give yourself time to your brain to adjust to those things. So make sure to practice slow. You'd be surprised that it will indeed help you learn faster. On to number two. Number two is consistency with practice. Practice as close to every day as you possibly can. In fact, I have a challenge for you. Over the next week, I want you to practice every day. And you may be saying, well, Tim, there's no way I can do that. Well, here is the catch. You don't have to spend a half hour each day or an hour each day at the piano. All I want you to do is start to create a positive pattern, a positive, consistent routine. So what I want you to do for the next week, I didn't actually really need the piano for that one, is to spend a little bit of time each day at the piano, just so you can get into a routine at sitting down at the piano. It can be for 5 minutes, it can be for 10 minutes, it can be for an hour if you want, as short or as long as possible, although I do recommend more than a couple of minutes, just so you get something out of it. All right, and that consistency is really helpful in developing good habits. That's the word I was thinking of. So if, what do your parents teach you when you're growing up, at least hopefully? Brush your teeth. Brush your teeth how often? Brush your teeth every day. All right, on to the next one. This next one I wish I knew way before I eventually learned it. I learned this in college, and when somebody first told me this, I remember it was Dr. Jozwiak. He said this, and it blew my mind. Are you ready? You have a measure of 4/4. You have eighth notes, 1 and 2 and then you have 3, 4. Now here's the deal, man. These, you see how they're beamed together? Do you wonder why when you could easily write an eighth note just like that? Well, here's the reason why. Dr. Jozwiak said when music is beamed together, that means that grouping equals one beat. And this is true probably like 99% of the time. There are times where it's not true, but like I promised, 99% of the time it is true. So this equals one beat. This equals one beat, and then of course these are all on their lonesome. And it's really useful in charting out where the beats are in your rhythms because you can see where they're beamed. Now you may be thinking, okay, the eighth notes, that's super easy. I knew that even without using the beaming trick, I guess you could call it. But like, what if you have something like this that's a little bit more complex? Now say we have a measure like this. And you're like, oh my goodness, right? How do I know where the beats are? This is a complicated mess, at least if you're a beginner piano player it is. Well, if you've been listening, beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and then lastly beat 4. Now you may say that you may see that these are grouped these beams are grouped across these 3 notes here. And you may be thinking like, well, what about this one here? It has the double beam. Don't worry about it. You're just looking at all of the notes together in a group. So no need to overcomplicate things with all that. So you can see right away that I have beats 1, a 2, a 3, 4, and counting them out correctly is a whole nother story. But trust me, that a lot of times in your music, you're going to be having to chart out where each beat is, whether you're playing in real time or you're taking some kind of exam or something. You do need to know this stuff. So remember that when notes are beamed together, there's a reason for that. And what is the reason? That it equals 1 beat, of course. All right, let's get on to, I forget what number it is, maybe number 4? Anyway, on to the next one, whatever number that is. Speaking of sheet music type tricks that you can visually use to figure out what's going on, I have another one for you, and that is the legendary ledger line rule. Let me, even though I have explained this on the channel before, let me explain. It's very easy. So you probably know your lines and spaces of each clef. Hopefully you do. For treble clef, it's E, G, B, D, and F from the bottom to the top. E, G, B, D, F. And the ledger line rule is thus. The lines on the staff are equal to the spaces going up off the staff, starting from the top space, by the way. That's the important part. So E and E, G and G, B and B, D and D, F and F. So if you were trying to, say you had a note way up here, hopefully it will let me do that. Say you have that note and you're like, gee, I have no idea what note that is. Well, just remember every good boy deserves fries. So every good boy, D for deserves. So that note will be a D indeed. So that you can use to figure out the lines, or the notes going up off the staff or below the staff on the ledger lines. Now, the inverse is true of this rule. The spaces on the staff, this is going to be really easy, I think, are equal to the lines going up off the staff. It's literally the same thing. If this is F-A-C-E, this is F-A-C-E, and then there's an extra one there, G. So you can use that to your advantage. The same also, there you go. The same also applies for notes going below the staff. So the spaces on the staff is equal to the lines going down below the staff. Now let's get rid of this G. That's just an extra one there. We only have 4 spaces, right? So we only need 4 of these notes. So this is how it works. You have F-A-C-E. Now here's the thing. Because we're going down below the staff, it's in opposite order. So F-A-C-E from the bottom to the top. So you just got to be careful if you're counting down. Say you have this ledger line note right here, that you're actually going to be going the opposite. So E, C, and that is going to be an A right there. The same is exactly true with the bass clef. It's just with the bass clef lines and spaces instead. Remember, spaces on the staff is equal to lines off the staff. Lines on the staff is equal to spaces off the staff. Whether it's treble clef or bass clef, you just got to be careful. If you're using bass clef, to use the bass clef notes, and if you're using treble clef, the treble clef notes. On to the next point. All right, number 5 is that you should start with the things you struggle with. Start your practice. And that's something I wish I knew from the beginning, because what I'll do, what I used to do all the time is I used to practice the same way. What I would do is I would get one of my pieces. I would play it from beginning to end. I would get the next piece. I'd play it from beginning to end. And then if I had a third piece, I'd play it from beginning to end. And I wouldn't really correct mistakes. If a mistake came up, I would correct it on the spot. But a lot of mistakes never ended up getting corrected because I didn't do this one thing, which is when you have been working on a piece for a few weeks and you notice there's a problem in a certain area, you want to mark that down in your sheet music. And then the first thing you do when you sit down and practice is to work on those problem areas. Be objective when you practice. Don't just say, okay, I'm just going to play this piece. What in the piece are you playing? What are you tackling? What are you working on? Be focused on the problem areas, but I actually recommend starting your piano practice with that because your attention span is the highest within the first few minutes of practicing, and unfortunately it goes down and down and down from there. That's why TikTok with the 1-minute videos is very popular. But anyways, on to the next one. It's time for the power tip, and this power tip has nothing to do with the ledger lines at all. It actually has to do with the last point that I was making. So if you've been practicing for a while, and say you start making a ton of stupid mistakes, I actually recommend you get up and take a 5-minute break. Only 5 minutes. Don't let yourself get too distracted. Come back to the piano. You'd be surprised like just what getting up and getting a drink of water sometimes will do for your mind. Sometimes you just need a little mental reset. Just a couple minutes will do. So the power tip for today is to take a 5-minute or so break if you feel like your attention span is starting to waver a little bit. But it doesn't work if you've just taken a 5-minute break. You have to have at least been practicing for, I'd say, half an hour to an hour before you've earned one. Anyway, let's get on to the rest of this lesson. The next one is sight reading. Did you know sight reading is the most important skill you can learn on piano? Why? Well, sight reading is all about learning a piece of music that you've never seen before, and you're reading it from sight. No way, you guys. So sight reading will really help you learn pieces much faster, much more effectively. So it's important that you sight read every time you practice, and ideally you should be sight reading something a little bit below your current level. So if the pieces you're working on look less difficult than this, then you don't want to sight read it. You want to be sight reading something easier, because the whole idea is to be able to play from the beginning to the end without much problems. I do have some sight reading lessons here on the channel where I'll go into more in depth on how to sight read. You can check those out. I'll try to make sure to link them for you. But yeah, sight reading is something I wish I knew about when I was first learning piano. I didn't really know about it until college when they're like, hey, sight read this. And I'm like, what? And they're like, sight read this. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you have to read it through, and you've never seen it before. And I'm just like, my brain exploded, but not really. And once I learned how to sight read, it's one of the most useful skills you can have, because you'll be able to pick up a piece of music and you'll be able to play it right away, and it'll actually sound like something. Isn't that awesome? I know that's like one of the most disheartening things when you first learn piano is you sit down, you play something for hours, something like Für Elise that everybody knows, and it still doesn't sound good. So if you sight read, it will help overcome that hurdle and things will go a lot better for you. There's still one more tip, but before we go on to, actually there's a couple more tips. Before we end the lesson with our last few tips, there's one thing I want to tell you about, and that is that I have courses over on my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com. I have over 20 courses designed to help you learn more about piano, music theory, sight reading, ear training, anything you need to become a well-rounded musician. If you really like what you've seen over here on the channel so far, you're gonna love my courses because they are structured, they cover a good amount of material, and they also include notes, examples, quizzes, and like anything you would expect from like a real college course to help you not only just learn each topic, but learn, practice, and master each topic, which is super important when learning piano. Use code YouTube for 15% off. All right, on to the rest of the lesson. Okay, number 8 of what I wish I knew when I was first learning piano is that to listen to recordings, professional recordings. So after you've been playing a piece for a while and you want some performance ideas on how you may play the notes a little differently to get a lot more sound out of it, a good place is recordings. You can go on YouTube. Just make sure that the person is professional. They're in a professional hall. I mean, you can listen to a small time recital recording if you want. You can get some good ideas there. But really, the top players is what you want to be listening to. The people that are very established in playing piano, because you will get a lot of ideas. You'll be like, oh, that they did that trill like they started it a little bit slower than I did, and it really worked out. And I'm going to try that. You will get so many ideas from listening to recordings of other people play. There's tons on YouTube, tons out there. Just don't put them in your YouTube video because they will strike it down like they have with so many of mine. Anyways, listener recordings is the tip I have for you. So earlier I mentioned sight reading and how it's the most important skill when learning piano. And guess what? I'm going to put that sight reading lesson right there just for you. I also have a ton of other tips around on the channel, like mistakes that you should avoid to make the most progress, things like that. I'll put another link right there for you, but remember to really at least check out that sight reading one. Your piano teacher Tim here. You guys have a good one as always, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.